These are some NBA players with some weird play styles. And first, we gotta talk about Joakim Noah. I mean, this guy shot like a girl in gym class, threw free throws off the backboard, and could barely jump off the ground. Yet finished amongst the top of the league in MVP voting, served as one of the most unique offensive weapons in the NBA, and was crowned as the best defender on the face of the earth. When Joakim Noah came into the league after winning 2 straight titles with Florida, he in no way fit the mold of your everyday center. He was an extremely long, fluid, mobile player who ran the court like a guard for his size. Everything he did was with high energy. Every rebound, every shot attempt, and every defensive possession was fueled by what seemed like an endless motor. Defense was Noah's foundation. From the time he came into the league, teams had trouble trying to solve the problem of the unorthodox big man. He had some issues with the Bulls organization at the start, even to the point where he was unanimously suspended by his own teammates, but once he was ironed out, things started to come together. And Noah was as unique as it gets defensively, playing at a time where big body post centers were ruling the land. With foot speed and switchability mixed with a high IQ to quarterback his defense from the interior, the full effect of his impact on the floor really would never be appreciated as a guy well ahead of the curve in the NBA. After averaging a double-double in his 3rd season, the Bulls rewarded him and signed him to a 5-year, $60 million deal. In the next season, the Bulls hired coach Tom Thibodeau, a coach notably known for rugged defenses and tough practices. And after leading the team alongside MVP Derrick Rose and Luol Deng despite some injuries, these guys would take the Bulls to the Eastern Conference Finals where they would unfortunately fall to a prime LeBron and the Miami Heat. He had been able to get himself onto an all-defensive team and the gears were clearly turning. But after D Rose fell in the next year's playoffs, the Bulls needed a leader, and Noah was there to step up. Even without Rose, Noah was able to pull the Bulls together and keep the team together in his absence, carrying the Bulls to a 48-34 record, coming in 4th for MVP voting. But he only averaged 12, 11, and 4 for the season. How the hell is this guy getting MVP votes? Well, of course, in Noah's case, his defensive impact was a major part of it. But offensively, this guy was truly one of the least talented scorers at his position. How in the world is a one-way player carrying a team? Well, for Noah, he wasn't exactly a one-way type of guy. For a big man, he was the best passer at his position and was really demonstrating levels of playmaking we had never seen before. The Bulls' offense was rough, but this was really where they stayed afloat while missing out on their sole creator in Derrick Rose. Joakim Noah was so versatile defensively and so smart offensively that guys like Steve Kerr would go as far to say he was the 3rd most valuable player in the league that season. But seriously, thank God this guy could pass the rock, because he couldn't do a single other thing on the offensive end. I mean, I get these guys are NBA players and I'm a YouTuber, but I promise you boys, my bag is infinitely deeper than Joakim Noah's. This guy has the best trainers in the world and can't shoot for shit. He was quicker footed but not really explosive. Joakim Noah lobs weren't really a thing, and seeing this guy put the ball on the floor was the last thing the Bulls wanted to see. He would get his 2nd All-Star nod as a reserve in the 2nd Rose last season and was able to take the Bulls to the playoffs. But really, this season was pretty legacy defining for Noah. For a guy who truly was solely a role player missing his MVP teammates, Noah was able to win a Defensive Player of the Year award while averaging well under 2 blocks per game, and come in top 5 for MVP while scoring 12 points. Everything you know about dominant centers, Noah completely defied. Chicago fans loved Noah and the curve that he brought to the team. Unfortunately for Noah, his decline due to injuries cut his prime a little short. But as a guy who served as a pioneer for positionless basketball while serving as one of the most crucial pieces on one of the best teams in basketball, you certainly don't see too many Joakim Noahs walking around. If you're watching this right now, there's an 84% chance that you're not subscribed to the channel, so make sure you hit that button for me. We're trying to hit 100K by the end of the year. Thanks for watching. Possibly the one guy who beat Joakim Noah in a contest to see whose jumper is more ugly was Shawn Marion. The Matrix came into the league as a Swiss Army knife. He was lanky on defense with 4.4 stocks per game and had a length that teams just couldn't pass up. Often listed as a small forward, Marion could guard up anywhere. His switchability was constantly on display, and he put opponents in hell on defense. His lateral quickness and freakish leaping ability made him a threat to snatch the ball away at all times, and year after year, he racked up defensive stats because of that. But he could also get a bucket too. He was subpar at best as a shooter, but his athleticism and high IQ created a lot of easy buckets for him. His jumper was one of the most awkward things you'll ever see from a pro basketball player, but it was a testament to how unique Shawn Marion was. Sure, he could hit a wide open jumper when needed, but judging by the fact that he shot 24% 40% from 3 throughout the first 2 seasons of his career, there was definitely some consistency issues here. Nevertheless, he made it work. By his second season, he was averaging 17 and 11, and was a perfect complement to a prime Jason Kidd before eventually Steve Nash came around. And the same season that he came was Mike D'Antoni's first full season with the team. D'Antoni has become known for his fast-paced, run-and-gun, offensive-based strategy, and Marion thrived within that. Amari Stoudemire was another guy who joined the team around that time, and while he and Nash were the leaders, Marion filled the spot as the ultimate glue guy. He was able to do what he did best. Despite being 6'7", Shawn Marion was the perfect small ball player you could have. He crashed the boards, defended the rim, and could guard legitimately 1 through 5 without having to sacrifice any pace of play in the meantime. In 3 full seasons under D'Antoni, Marion would be selected to 3 All-Star teams, 3 All-NBA teams, but shockingly enough, never once would be selected to an All-Defensive team. His best year came in the second of those 3, where he averaged 22 points, 12 rebounds, and 3.7 stocks plus rebounds a game. When he was on the court, he was a disruptor. Teams didn't shoot worse, but instead, they struggled to keep the ball in their possession and get rebounds when Marion was on the floor. He was tied for 6th in offensive rating and 9th in defensive rating that season, and gave you everything you wanted in an unselfish sidekick to a Hall of Fame point guard and more. Despite being largely remembered for his jump shots, having an inconsistent jumper was the least unique thing about him. Being a small forward that can go out there and get you 22 and 12 with 2 steals and 2 blocks is literally unheard of. I mean, this guy was consistently talked about as the most underrated player in the league, and despite the stats speaking for themselves, his game was so unorthodox looking that it was hard to comprehend just how bad he was cooking dudes out there. He would spend a couple of awkward transition years before finding another longtime home in Dallas. From the jump, fans loved his awkward jumper, his defensive tenacity, and his adaptability to play whatever role he was put into. He was no longer a 20-point per game guy, and was even relegated to the bench for a short period of time, but his importance was evident, and especially in the big moments. In the 2011 finals, Marion's defense and consistent play was crucial to the Mavericks' success. He averaged 14 and 6 on 48% shooting, and when you take into account the fact that he had to guard LeBron in nearly every game, while LeBron averaged just 18 points, it's pretty damn impressive, especially when you're reminded that LeBron is a 28-point per game playoff performer throughout his career. He would spend the next 4 years of his career fizzling out, but by the end of his run, had more than 17,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, and just shy of 3,000 steals plus blocks. Really, his versatility was nothing short of fascinating. Spending his best years on a team that loved to run, he was able to maintain a scoring average near 20 points per game, mostly from his transition play and hustle points. But when he took that element away from him, it oddly didn't matter a ton because he gave you so much in so many different ways. In an era where positionless players really didn't exist, Marion was the anomaly. He was a guy who could get big and get boards while still having the ability to guard point guards. His career really showed that greatness doesn't always come conventionally. Marion was an awkward dude, but the energy that he brought to his teams was very unique. He didn't need the spotlight on him for years. For Shaun, it was pure ethical hoops. There hasn't been a guy quite like Marion, but he still paved the way for many other two-way wings to come. Next, we gotta talk about Andre Miller, who was a certified anomaly in a league filled with quick and flashy guards. After getting drafted 8th overall in the 1999 draft by the Cleveland Cavaliers, Miller was expected to be a floor general. He was a big, strong point guard that got the job done with his smarts and his physical style, and he could also guard up on both bigger and smaller guards. His game was grounded in fundamentals, really, and he had an incredibly high IQ, but he didn't care about being a flashy guy in the spotlight, and he was rarely featured on high-flying highlights. It's difficult to really pinpoint why his playstyle was so unique and so awkward without talking about his offensive game. To put it shortly, he was a point guard who just loved to post up. It was methodical, and it gave young guards who loved to get out and run issues because it was so unusual to their typical play style. This style of play gave him the nickname of the Professor with his pristine footwork and insane patience. He was playing a big man's game in a point guard's body. You see, Miller grew up playing in Compton, where most of his games ended in brawls, but he worked his ass off. Fighting was just a part of the game there, and to survive, you had to be tough as nails. But by the time he was in high school, he realized he needed to stand out. And so he ended up using his strength to his advantage to bully smaller guards in the paint. And the same thing happened once he got to the NBA. You see, Miller knew he was strong, and after years of working on his craft and studying players of the past, he was more than equipped to dive down in the post, and that he did. I mean, the guy had more post-up moves than most centers do. He would spin, bump, or blow by defenders who were used to guarding guys on the perimeter, rather than 5 feet away from the basket. When he had the ball in his hands, the game slowed down, but that's exactly what he wanted. Pounding the ball against the floor a couple of times before bouncing off his defender defender's body was his specialty, and it took a lot for somebody to figure him out. He could pass the rock better than most guys too, leading the league in assists in just his 3rd season with 11 per game. And when he put the defense to sleep with surgical movements like he did, then it shouldn't be hard to find an open man. Throughout his first 3 seasons with the Cavaliers, he averaged 15, 8, and only missed a single game. And after spending some time in LA, he would sign a 6-year, $52 million deal with Denver, cementing his place in the NBA. And there he would start getting another nickname as the NBA's Iron Man. He didn't miss a single game during his first 3.5-year stint in Denver, and was damn near indispensable because of that. And he averaged about 14 and 7 in that stint as well. Each and every year, he proved to be integral to the success of the team, and he led the Nuggets in win shares in 2 of his first 3 seasons with the team, losing out in the 3rd to just an All-NBA level Carmelo Anthony. As his career progressed, it was clear that Miller would be a long-time NBA player. At age 31, he scored a career-high 17 points per game, and would go from team to team, failing to miss games, and just playing pure traditional basketball. In fact, he was able to play in 632 straight games before getting suspended for a single game after getting caught shoving a young Blake Griffin. Additionally, as he started getting into his 30s rather than going extinct, he flourished, playing a full-time starting role until the age of 35 when he was sent back to the Denver Nuggets, where he played second fiddle to Ty Lawson, and unsurprisingly, didn't miss a single game. There was without a doubt no one better to lead a second unit, and Miller excelled at it under coach George Karl. As a matter of fact, in his first 2 seasons off the bench, he had a plus 4.6 on-off offensive differential, so you could definitely say that he maximized the time that he had on the floor. The final 3 years of his career would see him play for 5 different teams, before he ultimately retired at the age of 40. His 17-year career still stands as one of the oddest and most unique careers in NBA history, simply because he played the game his own very slow and weirdly traditional way, and because he made the game tough for anyone playing against him. Nowhere else you're going to see a point guard whose first instinct when scoring was to post up. It was bizarre. And apart from an all-rookie team and leading the league in assists one season, Miller lacked any real other accolades. He never made an all-star game, he never was a part of a championship-winning team, and it feels like he hasn't really gotten his flowers for the incredible consistency and durability that he showed throughout those 17 long seasons. When you think about conventional big men of the 2000s, I bet your mind goes to the guys like Dwight Howard, Al Jefferson, or Shaquille O'Neal or something. These big burly 7-footers who control the paint. But then there are guys like Chuck Hayes who didn't quite fit the mold. Chuck Hayes was a 6'6", 240-pound center, but he wasn't really an athletic 6'6" center, and his jump shot was the nastiest looking thing of all time. And so, it came as no surprise when no one picked him up in the 2005 NBA draft. But he impressed teams by winning the MVP at the Portsmouth pre-draft invitational and would sign with the Rockets after the draft. He would get cut before averaging a double-double in the G League and getting signed to a 10-day contract by the Rockets once again. And there, he would slowly start digging a spot for himself within the team, playing in 40 games as a rookie. How was he able to hold his own against guys who had half a foot of an advantage on him? The answer was strength and pure willpower. He was the immovable object in the post, and played tough, hard-nosed defense with his low center of gravity and strong legs. It gave him an odd sense of leverage. While he didn't jump any higher than other guys, he simply just out-muscled them. His teammate Shane Battier stated, "3/4 of the world is covered by water. The rest is covered by Chuck Hayes." He would get some opportunities to start at power forward over the next couple seasons before taking up the starting center role in lieu of an injured Yao Ming. He averaged just 4.4 points and 5.7 rebounds in the 2009-2010 season, but played and started in every single game. And for a guy whose game needed to be more physical than others, that's pretty damn impressive. He was a great teammate and a great leader, and was even named a co-captain for that season. It proved that you didn't need to be the tallest guy out there to get boards. You just had to have better positioning, and really taking away offensive rebounders at times with a big body box out is damn near even more valuable. He had his basketball IQ on full display in the next season, where he averaged career bests of 8 and 8 and carried the second most first place defensive player of the year award votes despite finishing in 12th. The last part of his game that was weirdly impressive was his passing game, as he averaged the 3rd most assists for a center in that season. He could operate an offense from the elbow, hit the teammates on backdoor cuts, and start an offense with a dribble handoff. The Rockets coach at that time, Rick Adelman, was a coach who unleashed his players' creativity and really was just a complete innovator, and that treated Hayes just fine, who was far from the norm. Hayes was never even close to a star in the NBA, but for a 6'6" center to play for 11 seasons, he was clearly doing something spectacular. To be against the grain as a slow-footed, undersized big this much, you routinely have to show your worth. which Chuck Hayes managed to do by punishing you for playing weaker bigs or trying some small ball of your own, and consistently just making very few errors every time he was on the floor. To say his play style was weird may even be a stretch, since in a way Hayes was a bit traditional for a big at the time. But for a 6'6" guy with all the disadvantages in the world, to play for this long is an enormous achievement and worthy of some recognition nonetheless. When Manu Ginobili made his debut in 2002, people didn't quite understand just how different he was. He was already a seasoned international player, a two-time Italian League MVP, a EuroLeague Finals MVP, and champion, and spent year after year developing his game before finally entering the league. He was different because of his genius. He was improvisational and beautifully chaotic. Although he struggled with injuries in his rookie season, he was selected to the All-Rookie team and gave the Spurs crucial minutes in the playoffs as they went on to win a title. As the years went on, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu created one of the most dominant and lasting teams in NBA history. Year after year, Manu's play style expanded. He thrived in tight situations and had a set of moves as he drove that were revolutionary. You know, the Euro step? Well, Manu was the one that made it a big thing in the NBA. It had been around in Europe, but it didn't make its way to the States quite yet until Manu came along. And now it's damn near an everyday occurrence. As Greg Popovich confessed in an interview, in the beginning he would do some things that I thought were unnecessary, until that point came when he came to me and said, "I am Manu, this is what I do." Ginobili's game worked because of all of those unnecessary things that he did actually worked. It was controlled chaos, and it flustered defenders. He was relentlessly effective. And then there was his passing game as well. No one could quite thread the needle like Ginobili did. As he whipped passes through the defense or between his legs or even between his defenders' legs, it was extra sure, but that was just until it wasn't. Ginobili by NBA terms really doesn't look like anything special. He's a skinny 6'6" shooting guard with average to below average athleticism. But every time he was on the floor, it was something out of the ordinary. He didn't have an ultra quick first step, he was a good shooter, not a spectacular one, and really this guy could only score with his left hand. But where he lacked in some lacking skills and athleticism, he made up for it with a sky-high IQ and the most creativity in the game. Ginobili defined the six-man role, because every game he played, you were bound to see something you had never seen before. He didn't need to dunk on your head to be a total Energizer bunny. From acrobatic finishes and floaters, Euro steps, and off-leg finishes to throw off rim protectors, everything Manu Ginobili did felt like a high-difficulty move. But if that's your whole game, I guess that's just who you are. From step-backs to nutmegs and behind-the-back passes, with Manu you really just had to expect the unexpected. In terms of the big three in San Antonio, Manu Ginobili definitely receives the least amount of recognition. But in terms of giving the fans a show during what was the most boring brand of basketball, very few players have ever done it like Manu Ginobili. When you think of Flash first guys, Jason Williams is the first guy on that list. Otherwise known as White Chocolate, Williams came into the league and came as the runner-up in Rookie of the Year to only Vince Carter, and he immediately stood out not because of his stats, but because of his style of play that he brought to the game. His court vision was otherworldly. He threw more no-look passes than chest passes, and while it didn't work all the time, that didn't stop him from throwing the next one with confidence. He was extremely talented, but very out of control. But before anything else, he was entertaining as all hell. I mean, in his rookie season, he got his jersey into the top 5 sold across all NBA players, and he started to become known as the coldest white boy in the world. From his elbow pass to the countless behind-the-back gems, there wasn't anyone quite like White Chocolate. On a team really from top to bottom that was one of the oddest, most effective in the NBA, White Chocolate was one who still managed to stay on tops in terms of popularity. With two of the best passing bigs of all time in Vlade Divac and Chris Webber, the early 2000s Kings were a ball movement clinic and one of the most effective teams of all time. White Chocolate kept the fans glued, but really in terms of effectiveness, this play style left a bit to be desired. After 3 seasons, the Kings had enough of Williams, and he would be moved to the Memphis Grizzlies for a more traditional guard in Mike Bibby, who immediately brought more success to Sacktown and probably should have got them over the hump if the refs didn't get in the way. He would see the playoffs twice with the Grizzlies and post career highs in both points and assists per game. But really, as an AAU style player, White Chocolate was almost too saucy for his own good. Williams ended up receiving an opportunity to start on a Miami Heat team that would win a championship during his first season with the squad, but by then, he had come full circle. His style had matured. Although he would still throw the occasional alley-oop or behind-the-back pass, his tendencies had changed to take care of the ball. While averaging 12 and 5 in his first season in Miami, he limited turnovers to just 1.7 per game, which was a far cry from the 3.7 that he was throwing in his earlier days. Although his playoff averages would drop a bit, it didn't really matter, as the Heat were able to keep any of their series from going to 7. He finished his career with over 8,200 points and 4,600 assists, which were more than respectable for any point guard, but the way he did it was what the people loved. His unorthodox street ball style play changed the perception of how a point guard could play his game. His highlight reels have amassed millions of views over the years, and his controlled chaos was something that the NBA had never quite seen. Even now, no one has quite seen someone with quite the same flair as Jason Williams. And while some guards today resemble Williams much closer than those who came before him, you just had to watch him to understand how unique he was. Now, if you want to see a guy who is just as crazy off the court as he is on, you need to look no further than Dennis Rodman. He debuted at the age of 25 after playing college basketball at Southeastern Oklahoma State, out of all places. But he looked at the game in a different way compared to everybody else. He aimed to be the best rebounder and the best defender on the court, and his dedication to do so was clear from the start. He was drafted by Chuck Daly's Bad Boy Pistons, and he fit in well there. By his second season, he was already in Defensive Player of the Year conversations, and would be a major catalyst to a Pistons finals run. And although he would lose it in brutal fashion to a Lakers team that season, they would come back and sweep them the very next year. And they could attribute a lot of that to the season that Rodman had. He led the league in field goal percentage. The disruption that he caused on the defensive end was what made him special. He thrived on getting into opponents' heads, and he roughed them up both mentally and physically. He was given the nickname Worm as a child, but it fit in perfectly in the league as he wriggled through defenders and gave 110% every play. He would then win 2 straight Defensive Player of the Year awards and another title with the Pistons as he gained notoriety as the one guy that you just couldn't out-hustle. And love him or hate him, you just couldn't deny it. In the 91-92 season, he made a remarkable leap in terms of rebounding. He would lead the league in rebounds by more than 3 a game with 18.7. But who knew that this would be the start of a 7-year run where he would lead the league in boards each and every season. He would spend the first 4 years of that stretch with Detroit and San Antonio, the latter of which is where he put up one of the most bizarre 2-game stretches in NBA history, scoring 49 rebounds and scoring 0 points. Although both his runs with the Pistons and Spurs were incredible, his best work was yet to come when the Bulls famously went out and traded for him to fill the void that Horace Grant was leaving. The trade for a 34-year-old guy who was off his rocker was a gamble by most standards, but he quickly fit in. Sure, there were times where he went off the rails, like when he headbutted referee Ted Bernhard, or when he claimed that he was bisexual and that he was fucking marrying himself, but he was a winner, and that's all that mattered to MJ and the Bulls. His impact was immediate. In his first season, the Bulls had a legendary 72-10 run, and in the playoffs, nothing changed. Rodman averaged 7.5 points and 13.7 rebounds as the Bulls blew by everyone in the playoffs, losing a total of 3 games as they snagged the title. He hadn't just filled the gap that Horace Grant left, he elevated it. He was gritty, relentless, and unbreakable, but what he was also was surprisingly smart. He knew the game inside and out, and he would memorize tendencies of players and where their shots would lie if they came up short or ended up long. You weren't going to see anyone out-rebound Rodman in a one-on-one situation. Because of the drive he had to get to the ball, he could sprint into crowds and put his body on the line no matter what. The next 2 seasons, the Bulls would go 69-13 and 62-20, while securing a second three-peat in the span of 8 seasons. And while a lot of the credit can of course go to Michael Jordan or maybe Scottie Pippen, without Rodman, that team would look a whole lot different. His genius was often understood, but under leadership that did understand how special he was, he flourished. Rodman claims that legendary coach Phil Jackson called him the greatest player he's ever coached. Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas highlighted Rodman as the best athlete he ever saw on a professional hardwood. And if that doesn't tell you how fucking good Rodman was, then I don't know what will. Sure, he had his deranged moments, but damn, he could dominate. I mean, for an undersized power forward to come in and become the greatest rebounder in history, there was certainly something a little unusual about him. Earlier, we talked about one of the shortest centers of all time. But now, we're going to look at Manute Bol, who was 13 inches taller than Chuck Hayes, but about 40 pounds lighter. Manute Bol came from what is now South Sudan and an incredibly tall family. At 7'7", Bol was literally impossible to guard, and would spend his time sitting around the rim, throwing shit down and sending balls flying. After FDU coach Don Feely convinced Bol to move over to the States after watching him play in Sudan, Bol came over and immediately put his name in for the 1983 draft. But after his pick was invalidated for declaring too late, he would play for a D2 school, the University of Bridgeport, for a season averaging 22.5, 13.5, and 7 blocks per game. And after getting picked up by the Bullets in the second round, Bol would go right to work. No one really knew for sure how fucking old this dude was, with some saying he was 23 and some saying that he was pushing 40, but one thing was for sure, he was scary. His defensive impact was shattering. He led the league with 5 blocks per game and nearly won the Defensive Player of the Year award as a damn rookie. Of course, he struggled with stronger bigs as he was barely 200 pounds, but no one could send shots back like Big Manute. He was freakishly thin, but freakishly long, with an 8'6" wingspan that still stands as an all-time NBA record. Offensively, Manute Bol was nearly unplayable. In his second season, he said, "I don't want to be a guard, but I can pass the ball like other bigs. I'm a good passer," but he was not a good passer, nor was he a good scorer. He had pretty insane limitations on that side of the ball that were hard to overlook. At the start, his offensive game was limited to putbacks and dunks. In fact, in all but 2 seasons, he averaged more blocks than points. He was an oddity. But as his career went on, he started experimenting on offense. After 3 seasons with the Bullets, Bol was traded to the Warriors, where he started to work on a 3-point game. After attempting 91 in his first year with the team, there was even one instance where he hit 6 threes in 1/2. But most of the time, he wasn't quite that automatic, as he shot 22% from 3 that season. His shooting motion was almost like a slingshot as he reared the ball behind his head and heaved it towards the basket. Coach Don Nelson of the Warriors was the one to encourage this, and made him a fan favorite for not just Warriors fans, but NBA fans around the globe. Throughout his career, Bol brought a special kind of energy wherever he went. When he went to play for Philly, he befriended Charles Barkley, who would come to be known as Charlie by Manute. He reportedly told stories of how his family killed a lion as a young herdsman in his home country, to which Barkley replied, "Man, you didn't kill no lion." Now, whether or not he really did is kind of a mystery, but it was a hell of a story nonetheless. Manute was fun to be around and was loved by his teammates just as much as by fans. After playing in Philly, Manute jumped around to finish off a 10-year NBA career, finishing with career averages of 2.6 points, 4.2 rebounds, and 3.3 blocks per game. While there have been other lanky big men about as tall as Manute in the past, there's something different about Bol. His ability to become arguably the greatest shot blocker we've ever seen, while having nearly no other talents other than 1/2 of 3-point excellence, is what made him so unique in the first place. From the skinniest and tallest player in NBA history to the fattest, Oliver Miller is really just remembered for his weight. At 6'9" and eventually tipping the scales at nearly 400 pounds, Miller became the heaviest player in NBA history. But what made him truly unique wasn't just his size, it was how he used it. Coming out of Arkansas, Miller wasn't your typical big man. While he looked like a bouncer, he passed like a point guard and swatted shots like a 7-foot-plus player. In college, he wasn't dominant statistically with just 12 points and 6.5 boards, but he stood out for moments like blocking Shaq at the rim in a clutch overtime game. It wasn't hype, it was mostly feel. He read the floor, zipped passes from the high post, and protected the rim with footwork, not verticality. Phoenix took a chance on him in the '92 draft, and despite weighing over 300 pounds, Miller proved to be a sneaky asset. In limited minutes, he chipped in defensively and even stepped up during the playoffs of Charles Barkley's MVP season. You don't often see a rookie backup center averaging 2.5 blocks per game in the postseason. By his second year, he'd earned real minutes and posted a solid stat line of nearly 10 points, 7 boards, and over 2 blocks per game. But what separated him wasn't even the box score. It was the fact that he was a center who passed like a point guard, blocked shots without elite athleticism, and operated the offense from the elbow like a poor man's Sabonis. If Miller had kept that up and stayed in shape, his play style would have carved him out a long and successful NBA career as one of the most versatile bigs of the era. But instead, the off-court issues hit fast. His weight ballooned, allegations and temper problems surfaced, Phoenix cut ties, and he bounced to Detroit, then Toronto, where ironically he had his best season. In 95-96 with the Raptors, Miller put up nearly 13 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and even had games flirting with triple-doubles. In one wild outing, 35 points, 12 boards, and 9 assists. That's not normal for a man pushing 320. Still, his lack of conditioning and increasing volatility derailed everything. He got ejected for threatening refs, tried to throw a chair onto the court, and never truly accepted blame. As Jerry Colangelo later put it, the problem with Oliver is he was never accountable. By the early 2000s, Miller had eaten his way out of the league. A comeback with the Timberwolves in '03 flopped, as he was nearly 400 pounds and couldn't stay on the floor. His final averages were a shadow of what could have been. And while he later cleaned up his act, even getting leaner and earning an induction into the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame, his legacy remains frozen. A 300-pound point center who never reached his ceiling. Not because he couldn't play, but because he couldn't stop eating. Shaun Livingston was one of the nastiest role players the league has ever seen. A 6'7" point guard with sniper-like accuracy from the mid-range, he wasn't just reliable, he was automatic. I swear it felt like he was using an aimbot whenever he pulled up. That turnaround fadeaway was straight butter. You didn't even have to watch the ball go in, you pretty much knew it was cash from the second it left his fingertips. Livingston's mid-range was so deadly, it basically became his entire identity. While the league moved towards threes, he said, nah, I'm good. The man attempted just 73 three-pointers in his entire career and only made 13 of them, despite playing on the team that was chucking more three balls than anyone in history. Why? Because he didn't need them. When your two-pointer looks like a prime MJ's fadeaway, who needs to chuck up three balls? One of his finest moments came in Game 1 of the 2016 NBA Finals. 20 points on 8 for 10 shooting, almost each bucket coming from that soft, clean mid-range touch. And in the 2018 Finals, Games 1, 2, and 3, he missed just one shot, going 13 for 14 across those games. That's not just efficient, that's inhuman. Livingston wasn't putting up flashy box scores night after night. He averaged about 5 points in 17 minutes per game with Golden State, but his impact was undeniable. He played smart, poised, high IQ basketball, set up his spots, took what the defense gave him, never forced anything, and that's how you win titles. And Livingston didn't just win. He became a core part of the Warriors dynasty, walking away with 3 rings in 5 years, and one of the most respected roles on the team. Only 39 players in NBA history can say they've got 3 rings on their fingers, and Shaun Livingston is one of them. But here's the craziest part. Shaun Livingston's NBA career was supposed to end more than a decade before those championships. He suffered what's considered the worst injury in league history, snapping his whole damn leg in half. Tore 3 out of 4 major knee ligaments, doctors considered amputating his leg, and somehow, someway, he fought back. 16 months of rehab, had to learn how to walk again before he could even think about dribbling a basketball, but he kept pushing. And in 2008, the Miami Heat gave him a shot. It was a miracle comeback, except he didn't stop at just making it back. He redefined himself. Gone was the high-flying athlete. In his place, the mid-range assassin. The post-up guard, the calm presence off the bench who made every possession count. And don't forget, before that injury, Livingston was the guy. Mr. Basketball in Illinois, McDonald's All-American, number 2 recruit behind only Dwight Howard. Duke wanted him, but he jumped straight to the league and got picked 4th overall instead. His ceiling was sky high. Even though the injury changed his trajectory, it didn't stop him from becoming a legend in his own unique way. After returning, he bounced around the league, Miami, OKC, Washington, Charlotte, Milwaukee, Cleveland, and then finally landed in Brooklyn, and that's where things finally clicked. He played 76 games, averaged 8 points, 3 assists, and was a steady playoff performer. Golden State saw the value and locked him up. Livingston's story is one crazy story of resilience. He nearly lost his damn leg and ended up playing 11 more seasons, winning 3 rings and cementing himself as one of the greatest comeback stories in NBA history. Thank you guys for watching. If you made it this far, subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're trying to hit 100K by the end of the year. And as always, I'll see you boys in the next one. Peace out.